In a series of confrontations with Kissinger in Damascus, Assad raged about this treachery. He told Kissinger that what he had done would release demons hidden under the surface of the Arab world.
Sound familiar?
Kissinger described their meetings. Assad's controlled fury, he wrote, was all the more impressive for its eerily cold, seemingly unemotional demeanour. Assad now retreated. He started to build a giant palace that loomed over Damascus, and his belief that it would be possible to transform the Arab world began to fade. A British journalist who knew Assad wrote, "Assad's optimism has gone. A trust in the future has gone. What has emerged instead is a brutal, vengeful Assad, who believes in nothing except revenge."
Revenge is what entailed what we're witnessing is a genre called Assadwave. And this is perhaps a postmodernist or a post-postmodernist form of content made by Assad sympathizers and Shia, not necessarily the same. And it utilizes a genre of music which is itself a technologically souped up nostalgia ode to the 1980s, in which the stage was set for this era of Western hegemony, the petrodollar, and the sectarian division of the Middle East, fueled by the Iranian Republic and the Salafism of Saudi Arabia. To read to you a passage from a book by Jean Baudrillard, who is an eminent philosopher of postmodernism, in a chapter written in 2004 called War Porn. Tomorrow there will be nothing but the virtual violence of consensus, the simultaneity in real time of the global consensus. This will happen tomorrow, and it will be the beginning of the world with no tomorrow. This is what the Americans seek to do. These missionary people bearing electroshocks, which will shepherd everyone towards democracy. It is therefore pointless to question the political aims of this war. The only transpolitical aim is to align everybody with the global lowest common denominator, the democratic denominator, the new world order, which will be both consensual and televisual. That is indeed why the targeted bombings carefully avoided the Iraqi television antennae. The crucial stake, the decisive stake in this whole affair, is the consensual reduction of Islam to the global order. World Trade Center, shock treatment of power, humiliation inflicted on power, but from outside, with the images of Baghdad prisons at its worst. It is the humiliation, symbolic and completely fatal, which the world power inflicts on itself, the Americans in this particular case. The shock treatment of shame and bad conscience. This is what binds together the two events. Before, both a worldwide violent reaction, in the first case a feeling of wonder, in the second a feeling of abjection. For September 11th, the exhilarating images of a major event, and the other, the degrading images of something that is the opposite of an event, a non-event, of an obscene banality, the degradation, atrocious but banal, not only of the victims, but of the amateur scriptwriters of this parody of violence. The worst is that it all becomes a parody of violence, a parody of the war itself, pornography becoming the ultimate form of the objection of war, which is unable to be simply war, to be simply about killing, and instead turns itself into a grotesque, infantile reality show in a desperate simulacrum of power. These scenes are the illustration of a power which, reaching its extreme point, no longer knows what to do with itself. Power henceforth without aim, without purpose, without a plausible enemy. And in total impunity. It is only capable of inflicting gratuitous humiliation, and as one knows, violence inflicted on others is, after all, only an expression of the violence inflicted on oneself. It only manages to humiliate itself, degrade itself, and go back on its own word in a sort of unremitting perversity. The ignominy, the vileness, is the ultimate symptom of a power that it no longer knows what to do with itself. September 11th was a global reaction from all of those who no longer knew what to make of this world power and who no longer supported it. In the case of the abuse inflicted on the Iraqis, it is worse yet. Power no longer knows what to do with it and cannot stand itself unless it engages in self-parody in a human manner. These images are as murderous for America as those of the World Trade Center in flames. Nevertheless, America in itself is not on trial, and it is useless to charge the Americans. The infernal machine exploded in literally suicidal acts. In fact, the Americans have been overtaken by their own power. They do not have the means to control it. And now we are a part of this power. The bad conscience of the entire West is crystallized in these images. The whole West is contained in the burst of the sadistic language of the American soldiers as it is behind the construction of the Israeli wall. This is where the truth of these images lies. This is what they're full of. The excessiveness of a power designating itself as abject and pornographic. Truth, but not veracity. It does not help to know whether the images are true or false. From now on and forever, we will be uncertain about these images. Only their impact counts in the way in which we are immersed in the war. There is no longer the need for embedded journalists because soldiers themselves are immersed in the image. Thanks to digital technology, the images are definitively integrated into the war. They don't represent it anymore. They involve neither distance, nor perception, nor judgment. They no longer belong to the order of representation, nor of information in a strict sense. And suddenly the question whether it is necessary to produce, reproduce, broadcast, or prohibit them, or even the essential question of how to know if they are true or false, is irrelevant. for the images to become a source of true information, they would have to be different from the war. They have to become today as virtual as the war itself. And for this reason, their specific violence adds to the specific violence of the war. In addition, due to their omnipresence, due to the prevailing rule of the world, of making everything visible, the images, our present-day images, have become substantially pornographic. Spontaneously, they embrace the pornographic face of the war. There exists in this, in particular in the last Iraqi episode, an imminent justice of the image. Those who live by the spectacle will die by the spectacle. Do you want to acquire power through the image? Then you will perish by the return of the image.
Please guide my tongue so I bring guidance to others. Grant my words incisive clarity.
What we are looking upon is the use of Shia fiqh on music and images to make better propaganda than you can do without images. And what we're also beholding is effective propaganda. You almost want to join the Syrian army and jump out of helicopters and fight the evil Muslims because you're the good Muslims. And this perspective, which people in this Reformation movement often feel, that they try to bite their tongues and not takfir the ones who takfir them. This is felt viscerally in the Middle East by Shia who are fighting Sunnis who would genocide them if they had the chance. And yet, at the same time, they become instruments of evil doings, and it simply becomes a question of, are we killing fewer innocent people with more precise strikes and less collateral damage? Are we reprimanding our soldiers who are holding people and torturing them and sexually abusing them? And the scars from these renewed conflicts run very deep, such that this Israeli conflict is not quite enough to unify. Because this fella fighting for survival of his autocracy.
It's not about losing and winning. It's about
so divisive.
Either winning or losing your country. It's existential threat for Syria. It's not about government losing against other government or army against army. Either the country will win or the country will disappear. That's how we look at it. That's why you don't have time to feel that pain. You only have time to fight.
Breaking news story this hour now. Syrian forces have recaptured Palmyra's citadel. This is a major victory for the Syrian army. Can you tell us more details, please?
Spectacular, very rapid advances that we're seeing right now by pro-government forces
Syria
that are now in control of that famous citadel.
The last
either the country will win or the country will disappear.
War.
That's how we look at it. That's why you don't have time to feel that pain. You only have time to fight.
Ultimately decided with air power. And now, with the Gazan genocide, we see the robotic drone bombardment phase of fifth-generation warfare. And here in the 2020s, we find ourselves in the postmodern era definitively. Whereas this genre of music represents a nostalgia, and this philosophizing of Jean Baudrillard, while filled with lament and incisive as to the surreal nature of power dynamics in the Pax Americana. In a way, this music is nostalgic for the continuity and ending of that era in which so many were comfortable to look on the face of evil, the face of sectarianism, and find themselves ironically detached. But we no longer have that luxury. And that doesn't necessarily mean that Judgment Day is gonna it's gonna happen in a decade or in 5 years. It might be in a million years, like in Dune or something like that. But we are closer to it than we've ever been, and we're in an era where different rules apply, and nothing will ever be the same again.